I made 100 grand in 1 month, still sleeping on my sister's couch, still sleeping under somebody else's roof, having very little money in my pocket. And overnight, because I provided value, because I solved the problem, all of a sudden now I made 6 figures in 1 month. What's up, everybody? What is going on? This is Cesar Hernandez, aka Coach C. Welcome to the Values Nation podcast, episode number 4. I want to ask you a question. Do you ever find yourself in a position where you have achieved certain things? You've achieved certain goals, and now you find yourself at rock bottom. Now you find yourself at a place where you have to rebuild. Maybe you've never reached the quote unquote top, but you're trying to figure out, how do I get there? How do I get to a point where I can actually achieve something and be proud of myself for the things that I have achieved? What does that look like? What are the things that you have to do to be able to achieve those goals, to be able to achieve those accomplishments, and to be able to be proud of yourself? You know, one of the things I talk about all the time is, if you keep your word on something, you gain confidence, right? And so how can you gain confidence from keeping your word about your dreams? You know, dreams are just dreams until you actually put action behind them. Dreams are just dreams until you actually get up and do something about those dreams. And so today, what I want to talk about is, I want to talk about, how do you reinvent yourself? How do you take yourself from being one human being to a completely different human being? How do you take yourself from being one man to a completely different refined man? A man that just really knows exactly where he's going. A man that knows exactly what his heading is, what his goals are, how he's going to achieve them. How do you get super zoned in to actually make those things happen? How do you do that? How do you reinvent yourself? So before we get started, I want to tell you a little story on how this applied in my life and how I had to reinvent myself. So I hope that this story helps you in understanding that I'm not just talking about theoretical things. I'm not just trying to dig up a few things that I found on the internet. These are things that I actually applied and made happen in my life, and my life just grew exponentially. So I want to take you back to 2017. And in 2017, I was at a point in my life where I had built up a multiple six-figure business. You guys have heard me on this podcast talked about how I built up multiple six-figure businesses. And this is one of those times where I had built a solid business up, and I was having a great time doing it. I was just very much at a point where I was just like, man, this is going fantastic. I finally got a team. I got employees. I got clients that are coming in into my gym. That's what the business was. And I was just feeling great. Well, there was a couple of things that I had not calculated for. There were a couple of things that I did not really take into consideration. And because I didn't take those things into consideration, it put me into a very tight position that I had no idea on how I was going to get out of it. And as that began to unfold on me, as that began to happen, when I didn't calculate for these things that are possibilities, I didn't calculate for how this could play out, I ended up losing that business. So let me tell you the story on how I lost that business and essentially rebuilt everything from the ground up. So it was about 2017, almost 7 years ago, and I had my facility and I was running my gym. I was taking care of my clients. I was really showing up and doing what I had to do. But at a certain point, when these calculations weren't taken into consideration and I ended up falling on my face, I was faced with the decision of closing my facility. Now, closing my facility meant I had to lose my clients. It meant I had to go back on what I was saying for so many years, which was, oh, we're never going anywhere. We're not going to shut down. We're not going to, this is here forever. This is what we're going to do. Like, I'm going to be here until, I don't know, until I retire or whatnot. And I had to talk to my clients about that and let them know, like, hey, things are shaky right now. Things are not good. And I want to say this was before 2020, right? When everybody had an excuse to shut down. I didn't necessarily have an excuse to shut down. Things were supposed to be great. I had enough clients that should have been able to cover everything. Should have been able to cover payroll. Should have been able to cover, our rents and everything that we had going on. But because of a couple of miscalculations, because of that, because of mistakes that I made in not being a great leader, in not being somebody who I needed to be for my people, for my clients, and for my employees, and all the people that depended on me. Because of that, I got myself in a position where I had to do this. So I came up with a plan where I knew that I couldn't pay rent anymore. I couldn't really sustain a whole lot of payroll anymore. I had to start letting people go. So I fired one of my employees. I had to transfer all of my clients to a completely different gym, a smaller space that I can pay less rent on, that I could do certain things that would try to mitigate some of the damage, mitigate some of the things that I was about to go through. And this was me scrambling every day trying to come up with solutions. So what I did was I went and I transferred everybody over to a gym that was a lot smaller, went into that space and just continued to operate as usual. Now, at that point, when I was done transferring everybody, I became very, very exhausted. I was tired. I was burnt out. I didn't know where to go. You ever feel like that? You ever feel like you don't know where to go? You ever feel like you just don't know what to do anymore? Like everybody's depending on you and you just don't know like what to do. You don't have a plan anymore. And you're trying to figure out, what do I do? Like, I got no energy. I got no more solutions. I used to be a person that had all the solutions and now I don't have any. That's the place that I arrived. That's the place that I got to. And when I got to that place, I just took my foot off the pedal and I started to negotiate with the gentleman that owned the actual gym. And when I was negotiating with him, it was almost like I believe the story was the Cain and Abel story where I was selling my birthright because I was hungry at the time. I wasn't thinking straight. And so I started to create these deals that I started creating this deal that essentially would be my downfall. And so I agreed with this gentleman that he would take all of my clients on. He would take everybody that I had there, and I would help him continue to build his gym on the back end. But I was going to make my exit. I was going to leave. I was tired. I was done with the gym. I didn't want to run it anymore. Everything seemingly was crashing around me. I couldn't keep up with the payroll anymore. I couldn't do any of these things. So I tried to save as much, save as much face as I possibly could. I tried to broker a deal with this person that, by the way, had already shown me who they were. You ever make a deal with somebody that they've already shown you? You ever get back into a relationship with somebody who's already shown you who they are, who's already had a couple of red flags, who's already done that, but you walk into a situation anyhow? You walk into a situation where you think that, hey, maybe this time is different. That was who I was at that point. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking that exact same way. Well, this person might have done me bad on this other deal, but this deal, he's not going to make me. He's not going to do me bad, right? And so I put myself into a position. I put my clients into a position to where I was making my exit. And as I made my exit, it came down to my last day, and about a week after I left, I started receiving phone calls from my ex clients and the people and my ex employees telling me that things were going wrong, that this particular individual had pulled all their contracts, that he had done something that he wasn't supposed to do, that he was no longer going to honor the contracts that they had with me prior to it. What does that mean? That means that a lot of people are getting screwed over. That means that a lot of people paid for a service that they're not going to get anymore. That means that they're going to have to pay again for what they've already paid for. And I was in such a place where I was so beaten up. I was so tired. I tried to mitigate it once again. We ended up having a meeting. And that meeting was probably one of the most traumatic experiences in my business life, where it seemed like everybody turned against me. Now, in retrospect, when I think about it, I think about a lot of people that were hurting. I think about a lot of people that financially had invested in something and then had bought into a vision that I had given to them. And so I take responsibility for that now. During that time, during that day, when I went to that meeting, it felt like the world was coming against me. It felt like, how can you turn against me after I've done all of these things for you, after I've helped you, after I've showed up, after I've counseled you, after I've helped you lose 100 pounds, I've helped you with all these things that you're bringing to me um, on a daily basis, being a borderline therapist for you, right? Like all these things. How can you do this? When in reality, what was happening was I was not taking responsibility for the things that I had done. I was not taking responsibility for the things that I didn't calculate for. So in retrospect, when I look at it now, I see that that was my fault. And it was also my fault for trusting an individual that had already shown me who they were. right? And so, long story short, I ended up going homeless after that. Had to move out of my place, move out of my apartment, lived in my car for a bit, and then I swallowed my pride and ended up going and sleeping on my sister's couch for a while. And that was one of the most humbling things that ever happened to me in business. My kids were depending on me, and I didn't have the answers. My kids were looking to me to get us out of this hole. My kids are looking at me as we're sleeping on my gym floor, as we're sleeping on um, a concrete floor. You see, because even though I had moved out of my old facility, I still had the keys, and they hadn't yet kicked us out completely. They were still waiting on a payment. I had already extracted everybody. I had already extracted all of my clients and took them out of the building. But I was actually living in that building for probably a good solid month before they changed all of the locks and everything on the doors. And so, as I'm going through that, as I go over to my sister's and begin to sleep on her couch, I'm sitting there and I'm wondering how I'm going to rebuild myself after this. At this point, my reputation is gone. At this point, my pride is completely smashed. My self-worth is gone. I don't know what's my next step. I don't know where I'm going to go from here. I don't know what I'm going to do. And because of that, I fell into a deep depression. When I fell into this deep depression, it was something that just had such a strong hold on me. Sometimes we allow ourselves to get to such a point where depression really rules over us. And that's the point that I got to. And so, after a couple of weeks of feeling very sorry for myself, licking my wounds, I decided that I wanted to get up and I was going to do something about it. And so I went over to a local gym that one of my friends actually owned, and I asked her for a job. I swallowed my pride and I said, "Hey, I need a job. Like I shut down my facility, and I need to have somewhere to go to make some money." So I ended up going to this local gym, and my friend she owned this gym, and I went over and I said, "Hey, I need a job. I need to make some money." And she was very gracious. She really was at that point, and she knew that I had essentially lost everything. She knew this individual that had essentially done, you know, the terrible things that he had done, and she knew that my word and what I was telling her was true. And so anyhow, so we ended up connecting, and I got the job, and I ended up being the front desk person. I ended up being the person at the front desk that was helping onboard new clients and doing sales and that sort of thing. Now, as you can imagine, it was a very humbling experience because I went from being the owner of my gym to now being the front desk guy. Like, let that soak in for a second. I was the front desk guy at a gym, and people that knew me, clients, ex clients, um, were coming into the gym because they needed a place to go, and they were seeing me at the front desk, and it was extremely embarrassing. I mean, we're talking about a small community where everybody essentially knows each other. There's no getting away from that, right? Like I live in Nashville now, where the population is way more than what the city I came from was. And so it's a lot easier in a bigger city to go and just, find a job somewhere. You don't have to deal with that. But I was dealing with living in a smaller city that everybody essentially knew me. And at that point, I just continued to go to work. I continued to try to figure out, okay, I just need to get some money and feed these kids and do what I got to do. And I was sitting there one day and I remember thinking, like, how do I solve a problem that's big enough that people are willing to pay me for it? What can I do to really like create something that I can get back to the top with? And so I started thinking about all the things that were going on in my facility. I started thinking about all the problems that I had faced. I started thinking about, okay, so when people come in, how do we onboard them? How do we do the things that we need to have more of a lifetime value for this customer? How do we keep them longer? How do we sell them more? How do we make sure that we're not making the mistakes that I made? Right? Like, what would I do different? Basically, is what I was doing. What would I do different in this case in this scenario? And so I developed a program and I started to kind of beta test it inside of my buddies who still own their gyms inside of their gyms. And I was sending them the information. I'm saying, hey, man, why don't you try this on your marketing play? Try this on your your retention play, try this, try this. And it started to actually work. Like people were getting more leads, making more money, and having more retention in their gyms than they had before. And so I started thinking, wow, this is pretty interesting. And so I'll never forget it. There was a Saturday, I was laying on the couch and I was still kind of licking my wounds, but I was being productive. And I made a post. And the post was, hey, something to the extent of, hey, we'll get you 600 leads absolutely free. We just need the data. You get the leads. And my Facebook and that post absolutely took off. I mean, it took off. All of the people that I had met along the way, all the people and the gym owners that I had been in masterminds with and rubbed elbows with and all these sort of things, they were hurting just like I was. I want to pause real quick, like, and talk about that. Sometimes when we are in pain, sometimes when we think that we're the only person that is really experiencing this, I want you to remember that there are thousands of people out there that are experiencing the same exact feelings as you. As unique as we are as human beings, as individuals, our problems aren't very unique. You see, this is just part of the human experience. And so when you're going through a problem, when you're going through tribulations, when you're going through hard times, understand that there are other people that are feeling this. Understand that there are other men out there that are experiencing exactly what you're experiencing. And so back to the post, it took off. It went viral. And I had begun to work on this product. I had begun to really refine it, put it into a membership site, and I began to sell it. People were asking for it. They were asking how much they could pay for it. They were asking, how can I do the same thing that you're doing with these other gym owners? And so I essentially put it together inside of a membership site and started to sell it. I made 100 grand in 1 month, still sleeping on my sister's couch, still sleeping under somebody else's roof, having very little money in my pocket. And overnight, because I provided value, because I solved the problem, all of a sudden now I made six figures in 1 month. I want you to think about that for a second. Seemingly, I went from 0 to 100 literally in number wise, but I went from being rock bottom to back on top. How does this happen? What is the formula to do that? If I was to try to duplicate that today, what are the steps that I would take to actually make that happen? And that's what we're going to talk about today. That's what we're going to hit on. So these are some of the things that I did to actually make that happen. And I'm hoping for the men out there that are sitting there in despair, thinking, how do I take my life to the next level? How do I show up better as a man? How do I refine myself? I didn't have the mentors. I didn't have a father. I didn't have all the things that I see some men out here have. I don't have a good support system. My wife doesn't believe in me anymore. My children don't believe in me. How do you go from that rock bottom to back on the top? How do you go to not having any confidence to having unlimited confidence in who it is that you are and what you can do? That's what we're going to talk about. Because I can guarantee you that when I went from 0 to 100, my confidence was through the roof. All of a sudden, I felt like I had the cheat code to making a breakthrough in life at any point in time that I needed to. And anytime that I feel my back is up against the wall, this is exactly what I do. And this is exactly what I would do if I'm in a dire situation again. So let's get into it. Number one, get around people that will encourage you and pick you up as quick as possible. Get around other men that are willing to talk to you about what is going on in your life. A lot of times you'll find this not just online, but you'll also find this in local church groups. You'll find this in Bible studies. You'll find this with individuals who are holding weekly meetings. Join up one of those groups because right now you're fragile. Right now you will sit there and isolate yourself. And while you're isolating yourself, you're doing more damage than good. So right off the gate, you got to get around other human beings. You know, I talk about this often in conversations that I have with one of my friends that's an extreme introvert. But the way that they break down people in prison is they put them in what's called the black hole, right? So they isolate them from the rest of the population of the prison. They don't allow them to have conversations with anybody. They totally block them off from the world, any communications, and they're just giving them food, but they're sitting them inside of this black hole trying to break their spirit. Why would they put them in a black hole to do that? Because we need each other, because we need communication, we need human interaction. Why did God create Eve? Because he said, it is not good for man to be alone. And so when you're looking at it, whether from a practical standpoint, a biblical standpoint, we need each other. So you need to get around other strong individuals who are in different seasons of their life to get encouraged. Because what happens is through osmosis, you will be lifted up with them. You see, there may be somebody that you speak to that has already gone through that season of their life. Maybe they're in their 50s. Maybe they're in their 60s. And they say to you, I remember being at that point in my life too. I remember being a 30-year-old person. I remember being a 30-year-old man and being in the exact same position as you. Here's what I did. You will be able to take from those people, those men, and gather the encouragement that you need to be able to live another day. You know, there are times where I had $0 in my pocket and I'd show up to a Bible study. I'd show up to a men's gathering. I had nothing to offer, nothing to give. I was humbled. I couldn't even really barely put my sentences together. And somebody that was sitting next to me was fully confident. Somebody sitting next to me had a full tank of gas, plenty of money in the bank, and they were able to reach back to me and encourage me. And they were able to say, I understand what that feels like. I know what you're going through. So my number one thing is always to get around other human beings that are doing better than you at that particular point of your life. Number two, you got to hit the gym. You got to start to get yourself into shape. Now, depending on how dire your situation is, you may not have the extra $40, $30, or $20, or even $10 a month for the gym. So I don't want you to use that as an excuse. If you got Mother Nature, you got Sir Isaac Newton's law of gravity, you can go outside and you could do something. And I have a suspicion that you, even if you have no connection on your phone, let's say your phone's been disconnected, like mine was during that time. I would just connect to a local Starbucks Wi-Fi. I would be at my sister's house and she had Wi-Fi, so I'd connect there. Even though my phone wasn't connected, I was still staying connected with the world. And I would just Google workouts, at-home workouts. Take that, download those graphics, hit the image. So you put in at-home workouts, hit the image button selection, and download any workout that you can do that's full body that requires no equipment. So whether you're going into the gym and you got the money to do it, or you're going outside to the local park or to your backyard or to wherever it is that you happen to be staying, you step out of your car if you're living in your car and you do the damn workout. Do it. Make sure that you get up and get your body moving. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. Number one, every time that I'm in shape, my confidence goes through the roof. Every time that I work out, I get positive endorphins and I'm moving in a different way, at a different speed, with a different confidence. I'm feeling great about life. Every time I fall back, I'm out of shape. I'm not feeling as good. I don't have the same sharpness and I don't have the same confidence. So number two is you have to get yourself to a point where you are going to get up and forcibly making yourself work out, because it's going to help you improve the way that you're thinking and the way that you're moving, the way that you're talking, the confidence in which you move with. It's going to help improve that. So make sure that you're getting to the gym. Make sure that you are going outside. I don't care if all you can do is 100 push-ups for the day and you're done. I don't care if you just do push-ups, squats, and a burpee. Whatever. Do what you have to do to get that blood flow. Do what you have to do to change up your state. your physical state, your mental state, and continue on with your day. Number three, you have to stabilize yourself financially as quick as possible. What does that mean? That means that you have to be willing to swallow your ego, just like I did when I went to my friend and I asked her for a job in her gym. And I said, hey, I'm not a gym owner anymore. I lost my clients. I lost my business. I lost everything I work hard for, everything I put my effort into for. Can I come to your gym and sell some memberships? Can you pay me so that way I can feed my kids? Stabilize yourself the quickest way possible. Now, I want you to remember this. This is not a career move. This is not something where you're purely going to make a ton of money. You're just trying to feed yourself and your kids or your family at this point. You're not necessarily trying to make the big bucks. You're just trying to stabilize things. I could tell you one thing that I felt so good knowing, even if I had $100 in my pocket and I had bought some food and the kids were now fed, and maybe I got the kids a pair of shoes or something like that because they needed it, and I was able to come through for those small little things, it did something to me. It gave me my hope back. So you're not going to go find your job, a job that's going to pay you a little bit of money for the riches. You're going to just get your stability back. You're going just to break even. You're going just to contribute. You're going just to be the person that says, I'm still putting in the effort. I'm still the man that can show up and put the effort every single day and go and work hard. There's something about it. There's something to be said for a man who is able to get up, and you may not be making the money that you were yesterday, but you're still willing to get up and to be the provider and the protector. You're still willing to get up and to do the things that are necessary to feed your kids, to do the things that are necessary to make sure that you are showing up as the father that you're supposed to be. So stabilize yourself. You will think a lot clearer. You will get more confidence once again. And you will feel like, okay, I'm contributing. I may not be in the position that I want to be. I may not be making the money that I want to be. But I will continue to show up day after day after day after day until it begins to pay. Swallow your pride, do some work, provide for your family. Number 4, don't buy into the lie that this is forever. Understand that there's going to be some doubters. Understand that some of your own family members, listen to me when I tell you this, there's going to be people around you. It could be your wife. It could be your children. It could be your aunt, your uncle, your mom, your dad that will tell you, see, I told you that was a bad idea. I told you that was a wrong move. And if you're not careful, and if you're not doing the things that are necessary, you will fall into a pit of despair because you are actually believing what they are saying. But don't buy the lie. Don't buy the lie that tells you that you are no longer doing the things that you need to, so this is how it's going to be forever. Don't buy the lie that says you failed at this thing, so you will always be in this position. You see, it rains. It rains a lot. The thunderstorms. But after every thunderstorm, the sun comes out. After every single storm in your life, the sun will arise again. After every winter, spring shows up. After every spring, summer comes back. And you got to realize that seasons are just that. They're seasons. They're little periods of time in your life where things are up and down. There are periods of your life where things will feel unstable. They will feel rocky as you're trying to build the life that you want to, as you're trying to do the things that you want to create that life that you want for your children and your family and your wife and the people around you that you love. Never fall for the lie that this thing is forever. You see, one of the quotes that I absolutely love is so many people will overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10. A long time ago, I stopped thinking in just years or months or quarters. I started thinking about what can I do in decades? What did I accomplish in my 20s? What did I do in my 30s? What am I going to do in my 40s? How do my 50s look like? What do the 60s look like? Can I make it through my 70s and my 80s by doing something different now? How do I set up that stage? You see, life itself is a season. We are merely a blip in the entire existence of the planet Earth. We're here for a short period of time, very short period of time. So you have to understand, my friend, don't get fooled into thinking that this is what your whole life is going to be. Don't buy into the lie. Don't buy into what your mind or anybody else around you will try to tell you when the chips are down. Number 5, read books, watch positive movies. One of the things that I did when things were really, really bad is I turned to mentors, and I didn't really have a whole lot locally, so I had to go to the internet. I'm living out here in shame because I failed. I'm living out in shame because I just didn't do what I was supposed to do. I miscalculated things. And because of that, I didn't want to really see anybody in person. Thank God for Instacart, because if I didn't have Instacart, man, I probably would have starved. I used that app for so long because I didn't want to see anybody in the grocery store. Like, that's how bad it got. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're reading books and that you're watching positive movies that are going to help move you forward. Some of the things that I like to do is I like to watch stories of entrepreneurs because I happen to be an entrepreneur, and you could apply this in any area of your life, but I'm an entrepreneur. That's what I like to do. So my inspiration is entrepreneurs that had to overcome certain things, that have faced certain obstacles, that they were facing bankruptcy, that they were going to shut down the company. They were, 2 minutes from shutting everything down. Everything was going down and just burning down. And they were able to save it. They were able to do something that still impacted the world. Where are those stories? Stories like the founder, stories like the Steve Jobs story, Bezos, all these different people that had overcome a lot of different obstacles. And whether you like them or not, or you like their products or not, you can learn something from their lives. You can learn something from what it is that they had to overcome. What obstacles did they go through? And it gives you a very good perspective on there's so many people out here that are going through the same thing I am. I started to read books like The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And I started to read How to Win Friends and Influence People. I started to read these books and really dive in and figure out, okay, so there are quote unquote cheat codes to life. There are things that I can do today, even if I don't have any money, that will put me in positions to succeed, that will put me in a position to make moves that I have to make to eventually get to the places that I need to go. And you won't get to the places at a high level with a lot of high level individuals if you're still thinking the same, if you're still talking the same, if you're still walking the same. So, how do you educate yourself? There are plenty of free resources. There are plenty of these books that have been translated into ebooks, that have been translated into voice books that you can go online and put it into a YouTube search, put it into a Google search, and get for free. Listen to them and take in the inspiration, take in the stories, take in the pointers, take in the hacks, take in all the things that you can. Become a note taker and burn those things into your heart, burn those things into your everyday moves, into the way that you speak, the way that you walk, the way that you come off, the way that you present yourself. Read books, watch positive movies, and I guarantee you it's going to help with the mindset. Number 6, this one's going to sound a little weird, but keep your dreams to yourself. I think that we live in such a open space today. Everybody wants to show off and everybody wants to do what they do for the gram. They want to do it for YouTube. They want to do it for TikTok. They want to put every single one of their moves out on social. You know, you hear people all the time saying, watch what I do in the next 10 months. Watch what I do next, in the next 30 days. Or we're about to blow up. I'm about to do this thing here. Well, I'm telling you right now in this season of life, it's time to get really, really quiet. It's time to really get quiet, to put your head down and go to work, to put your head down and to work like you've never worked before. You see, when I had that month that I created that product, it had nothing to do with my previous business. My previous business was a B2C business. It was a business to consumer or customer business. My second business that I blew up with, laying on my sister's couch, was a B2B business. So those are two different worlds. That's a business to business. And because of that, I didn't really say much on my socials because most people that followed me were my B2C customers. But my B2B people discovered me through different groups and forums, different private groups that had to do with business. So we were only speaking about things on those platforms. And so essentially the people that knew me from my gym, the people that knew me from my everyday life had no idea that I was actually blowing up again. I mean, I was so quiet. There was nothing indicating that I was having success again. And it was the most sweetest success that I ever had because I was doing it in silence. I was making these moves and I made that money and I did what I had to do for my family and got us back to a better position in life because I was just keeping my head down and going to work. You know, a lot of times when you look at Bible stories and you look at certain points of people's lives where they're getting ready to do something big, God will bring them into a place that is quiet. He'll bring them into a place that is like a desert. He'll bring them to a place that is just them alone figuring things out. Whether you want to talk about people who were like Moses, who was in exile, if you want to talk about people like Jesus that went into the desert before his crucifixion, you will have a period of time in your life where you will have to disappear. You will have to go into the shadows. You will have to work on yourself, and to operate from a standpoint of you're not just saying your dreams to anybody anymore. Because the fact is that if you just go and say your dreams to everybody, there are people that are looking at life through completely different lenses. There are people that don't believe in dreams anymore. There are people that don't believe in building businesses. And if you start to say these things to them, it's like throwing the pearls to the swines. Why would you do that? Why would you throw pearls to pigs? Why would you throw your ideas and the things that you want to do to people that don't even have a vision? What'll happen is people will give you their opinions. They'll give you their doubts, their overshadowing, like what they see in your future. Well, that's cool, man. But you got to remember, like, people from where we're from, they don't really do that. Well, you remember last time you tried doing something like that, and, you got to be careful now, man, because, hey, you already messed up. And, you shouldn't be trying to do another business. I would probably just go get a job if I were you. You got to start working on your dreams in silence and only have a handful of people that you trust that are going to be there to help build you up and light your fire. And you're doing the same for them. It's a two-way street. I talk about a lot of times in the entrepreneurship world, it's very hard to have a conversation in regards to entrepreneurship with a regular person who has never built a business before, who's never even tried to step out of the box. They've always been a 9-to-5er. They've always been somebody who just shows up to the job, clocks in, clocks out, goes home, and, stacks up on their retirement plan. It's very hard to have those conversations. So you got to have a very small group of people, be very quiet, very silent, and just continue to work on what you're working on. Number 7, create your opportunities. If you have a job or if you were like me trying to build a business, the opportunities just don't fall in your lap most times. Sometimes they do. There's a little bit of entrepreneurship that has to do with an opportunity just coming around at the right time. And you could call that a blessing. You can call that, God making his move with you, whatever it is. But a lot of the times you have to create the momentum and the opportunities that you need for yourself. So what does that look like? So if you're working a job, show up to the job every single day. I don't care how small it is or um how much it is. I don't care how hard it is or whatever it is to show up with a good attitude to that job. Show up with a good attitude. Show up and do what you have to do. Show up and do it better than anybody else. If you are sweeping the floor at Taco freaking Bell, like sweep that floor and whistle. Sweep that floor and do it like nobody has ever done it before. If you are flipping burgers at Burger King, flip them burgers with a smile and singing a tune. If you are in a customer service position and you're at some sort of, you're a cashier at a store, bag the people's groceries like they've never been bagged before. Set yourself up for the opportunity for people to notice you, people to see that person is different. That person has something. That person went above and beyond. Man, that scanner really scanned them groceries efficiently. Put them inside of the bag. Asked me how my day was going. Asked me what was going on with me today. Did I have any plans for today? Told me, see you later. Have a great day. I hope that you have a great dinner. Don't forget to try that new pasta sauce that I just recommended. Like, these are things that you can do to set yourself up for opportunities to find you. Or if you're an entrepreneur, what problems can you solve? What things can you take from your past and create products from those things like I did? What things did you experience? What problems did you experience in your last business or just in life in general that you can now help other people solve? What are things that you can bring to the marketplace that are of value? These are the things that you can do to set yourself up for those opportunities that you're looking for. You see, this is practical. It's not just a metaphorical thing or a hoorah thing. This is a practical thing that you can do. You show up to your job with a smile on your face, a tune, that you're singing, a pep in your step, whatever that looks like. But when you show up to your job, do your job better than anybody else. Like your life depends on it, because it does. Your confidence, your pride as a man, as a provider and a protector, it all matters, man. It all matters. I don't care if you're sweeping that floor at Taco Bell. Sweep it up, mop it, and make it look good. Make it look great. Make it smell good. If you're cleaning up the restrooms at Taco Bell, make sure those are the cleanest restrooms on that part of your city, to where people will recognize you. If you're an entrepreneur, build that thing that's going to solve the problem better than anybody else. Become compassionate about the people that you're helping. Walk with conviction. Don't do it for the money at that point. Do it for the love of the problem that you're trying to solve and the people that you're trying to help. Number 8, this kind of works in conjunction with what we've already talked about, but I want to hit on it. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job to set up yourself for your future. So when you go to your job, do everything I just said. Show up, clean, do it with a pep in your step, do all that sort of stuff. But when you get home, read the books even more. Take time to improve who it is that you are even more. Do the personal development that it takes. Get up, go to the gym, get up, read your word, do the things that you have to just continuously improve yourself, and work harder on that while you're working at your job. Work harder on yourself and developing yourself into a better version of you, the best version that you could possibly come up with. Look, at different seasons in your life, you'll always be better than what you were before. So if you messed up yesterday, if you did something yesterday that you're not proud of, Simply get up today and be better. Get up today and do it again. That's the beauty about life. Have you ever noticed that we go to bed and then we wake up the next day and it's a brand new day? Have you ever noticed that? The sun comes up again. It's like hitting the reset button. That's a beautiful thing. It's an amazing thing. And guess what? It happens every single day. So as that's happening, work harder on yourself than you are on your job to make a better self for tomorrow. Number 9, take inventory of your flaws. Understand you got flaws, bro. Like you do. You're not a perfect human being. You don't got everything together. As much as you like to think that you do, there are things and mistakes that you made in life to get you in the position that you're at right now. You heard me earlier talk about how I now take accountability for what happened. I took full responsibility. And because I did, it forced me to look at my leadership skills. It forced me to look at my business building skills. Okay, I didn't create the income in the proper way. This is me taking inventory of myself in my gym. What mistake did I make? I didn't have enough recurring revenue. I was doing sales that were one-time off sales that created influxes of cash, and I thought that I was doing good. But I didn't create the stability that my business needed and that it required for me to continue to get through the tough months where we didn't have much coming in. That was one of my mistakes. One of my other mistakes was not being a good leader when I was tired. When I was tired, I neglected certain things, certain details I didn't want to know. I was a little snappy with my assistant, with my kids and people around me. I was just burnt out. And I wasn't being a good version of myself. I wasn't being a great version at all. How do I make those changes? How do I make those switches? What can I do to improve that? You have to take inventory of yourself and be honest. If your kid tells you they don't like something about you, don't get mad or offended. See if there's some truth to it. If your wife comes up to you and tells you something like that, see if there's some truth to it. Can you take the pill that is humility and say, yeah, you're right. I'm short-tempered. I get pissed off really easy, don't I? Man, my fuse isn't as long as it used to be. When I speak to you, I speak in a condescending tone. When I speak to you in a way that's not conducive to the vows that I took with you. It's not loving. It's not compassionate. It's not understanding. I'm not trying to hear what you have to say. I'm only trying to tell you my side of the story. Do you understand what I'm saying? Take inventory of who you are. Take inventory like, is this okay? Do you want to continue to be that person? And if not, change it. Number 10, keep your overhead down. Even when you start to make money, do not try to start to get fancy. This is a mistake that I've made multiple times in my life, and this is why I think it was important to add it to the list. You know, once we start getting back, quote unquote, on top, we start to feel like, hey, man, I'm back on top. I'm untouchable now. There's nothing that's going to take me out. And so we start to acquire things. We start to buy things. We start to get that new car or get that new place or whatever it is. And all of a sudden, we got all these bills now that we have to maintain and keep up. I would advise you that as you're on your way to the top, to keep that as minimal as possible. To keep yourself in a place where you're not trying to just show off because you're back on top now. There should be a good amount of people that look at you and be like, man, I hope he's doing okay. And that's all right. Keep it humble, keep it small, keep the overhead down as much as humanly possible to continue to build on what you want to build tomorrow. I always think about this photo of Amazon that I've seen of Jeff Bezos. And Jeff Bezos is sitting there in his office. And he's got this photo of Amazon spray painted on a board tacked on the wall. Crazy to me. Crazy. This man was building what would become one of the biggest businesses. And at that time, it was already a booming business. And this man has a spray painted Amazon sign on the back of his wall. Don't let pride get in your way again. Don't let showing off to other people to show them what you have get in the way of going to the place that you're really trying to go. Pride comes before the fall. Don't get fancy when you start to make a little bit of money. Don't get fancy when you start to get a little bit back. Keep your head down. Keep working. Keep doing what you have to do. Keep doing the things that are necessary to grow and reinvest in yourself and in your business. What does that look like from a practical standpoint? If you were sleeping on the couch, cool. Pay a little bit more rent for that place, or maybe get a 1-bedroom apartment as opposed to a 3-bedroom. Do what you have to do to continue to feed yourself, but don't go fancy. Still buy a generic brand. Still do what you got to do. If you were working out outside, you couldn't afford a gym membership, don't go buy the most fancy gym membership. Just get the next step up. These are all practical things that you can do at that point in your life when you're trying to rebuild, when you're getting back on top and you're trying to sustain it. Do that as long as possible. Do that until your income tells you, okay, all right, it's cool. You can breathe now. You can get a little more fancy. On your way back to the top, you want to make sure that you're staying within certain limits and certain limitations, that you don't end up right back where you just came from. That's the point. And I think a bonus one that I want to throw in here, the very last one that I want to cover, is kill the dog. What do I mean by that? Kill the dog. You know those habits? You know those things that you like to do? You know those things that are your old person that got you into that position in the first place? Kill that person. Kill that dog. Starve that dog. Don't do those things anymore. If you are somebody who knows that you have a bad habit with junk food, kill that dog. If you are somebody who has habits of doing things that are destructive, kill that dog. You got an anger problem, kill that dog. You got something that you haven't been able to let go of, like pornography or other habits, smoking, drinking, partying, kill that dog. Feed the dog that you're going to become and that you want to become. Feed the dog that will become the person that you are eventually in your life and that is stronger than the old dog. Starve the old one and feed the new one. You see, life is not peaches and cream, and this is why I use the metaphor of a dog, because you gotta have that dog in you. And the problem is, most of us men are feeding the dog that is destructive to us. Most of us men are feeding the habits and the destructive things in our lives way too much. And we think it's casual. We don't think it's a big deal. We don't try to mitigate it at all. We don't try to slow down with it at all. Kill the dog. Kill the dog. Do what you have to do to be the new person and feed the person that you want to become. Do more of that every single day until that dog is gone. Until that person that you used to be is completely dead. You see, the person that I am today is not the same person I was 7 years ago. They used to call me Coach C, but my version of Coach C today is completely different than the Coach C that was here 7 years ago. I even struggled in calling myself that anymore because I didn't want people to associate this Coach C with that Coach C. You see, that Coach C is dead. He's gone. He's not even a thing anymore. I lived that life and I understood who I was during that time and I grew from it. I grew from that experience. And I'd like to take this opportunity to let people know, if you knew me during that time, if you knew who I was during that time, I'm here to tell you I'm no longer that guy. I'm here to tell you that that dog is completely gone. Coach C in that time has been killed off for good. I'm a new, refined human being. And that's what you have to do when you want to get yourself to a new level. Starve the old habits, starve the old dog, and feed the new one. Feed the new habits, the new structure. The refinement process has begun in your life. Do not set yourself back. And in closing, I'm going to give you this to think about. You ever been that person that in your life, you don't know why things kind of keep going back and you can't kill those habits? You can't kill those things. Like you're on a good start, you're doing what you got to do, and all of a sudden you find yourself back at square one. Then you start again, and you go and you're doing it, and you're doing a great job, and then all of a sudden you're back on square one yet again. It's because somewhere along the line, you decided to entertain those things that you had stopped entertaining. You've decided to entertain those things that you had already stopped doing. And what I'm advising you to do is to take a full inventory of that stuff and say, yeah, that's just not acceptable anymore. That's just not who I am no more. I can't walk like that no more. I can't talk like that no more. I can't watch that no more. I can't read that no more. I can't even have those same conversations anymore. I can't be friends with that person no more because that's the old me. And the new me is on something different. And I got enough conviction around that to understand that I'm going to a completely different place. So these conversations, not acceptable anymore. These places that I used to go, not acceptable anymore. Once you begin to do that, you will not fall back into who it is that you used to be, and the cycle will not continue to get you. That cycle of starting and stopping and coming back and being at square one will stop, and you will continue to move forward and have progress in your life. Do that and watch your life grow. Hey, this is Coach C, letting you know that you can rebuild your life, that you can do the things that are necessary. You can go from 0 to 100 once again. It's not hopeless. You got it in you. Take these and watch your life grow. We'll see you soon.